What is up, folks? NYKia31 here. This is a Madden 18 online CFM game that you will be seeing with my Jets and the horror show that they are to play with. But anyway, this will serve as the backdrop for, I guess you can say, a current state of. We're pretty much exactly, you know, a month into the game. We had a mini update pre-Hurricane Irma that they released just before that hit. Or we got a full update coming in the not too distant future. This is a matter of when it's getting here. There are some things that we can make a reasonably educated guess as far as what it'll address, but otherwise your guess is as good as mine. But until then, let's take a look at where we're at, whether we're playing offline MUT head-to-head or online CFM head-to-head. Really, the big word that comes to mind is sloppy. Sloppy, 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 slop. A lot of sloppy bugs. A lot of sloppy bugs that have a lot of people irritated. Whether you're a competitive guy, sim guy, somewhere in between. And what's even worse, we've had a couple of tournaments played, with the game in this state, which kind of boggles my mind, but that's a whole separate discussion. But it's so encompassing that I'm not really quite sure where to begin. I can pretty much begin anywhere. As you guys know, I'm a schematics and X's and O's guy. That's my thing. That's what I, eat, sleep, drink, and breathe. And some of you have asked, well, where are they? Where have they been? When are you going to start them? I recently started the run and shoot ones, but I haven't done any defensive ones as of yet. And the reason being, we'll start there, is that even though we got that update, that tuned zone reaction time, I still don't think that doing those type of videos is useful yet. If you've watched my man and zone coverage labbing videos, we discovered things such as coverage shading being backwards in man coverage, and having to make certain adjustments to players that you have in your zone coverage in order to get other zones to function properly. There's just way too much stuff like that. And on top of that, you have things such as seam flat zones, for example, turning seam reads loose down the middle of the field. And that's before we get to a host of leverage issues out of quarters and 3 deep coverages, which cause routes to get open down the sideline against those coverages that really shouldn't. I really don't feel the point of doing a video breaking down the different zone coverage techniques that are in the game, because a lot of them aren't functional, or aren't functional the way that they're supposed to actually work. And sometimes it's frustrating, to be honest with you, having conversations within the Madden community about these things, because, you're only going to know what you know. So I don't get on people that much if they just don't know something, just as long as they're willing to learn and unlearn their previous misconceptions about things. For example, this is a community where you have people who believe that linebackers should be able to reach corner routes to the sideline, which is lunacy. That's what you have corners for. You have people that legitimately don't want corners in deep zone coverages to be able to defend deep corner routes. And sometimes trying to explain, no, that's incorrect, and here's why. Here's the problems that would cause if the coverage you're trying to play was designed that way. It can get a little frustrating because sometimes it doesn't all translate, and what we end up with is bastardizations of coverage techniques to match what the Madden gamer thinks is correct as opposed to what's really correct. I'll give you an example. Cover 3 Mabel in this game. Cover 3 Mabel, it's not Cover 3 Mabel. I remember the first time I saw it, Madden 17, and tried it, I said to myself, what exactly is this supposed to be? And I gave my feedback asking that same question. What is this? And the answer was more or less, well, this is something that we designed to help address user feedback as far as defending certain type of flood concepts. And people like me, Grafter, DSK, Beast Mode for MVP, we said, no, there are checks and adjustments that teams make out of match coverage to help deal with those type of route combinations. Why not put those into those coverages instead of inventing a coverage just for that? Cover 2 Buster was another one. Cover 2 Buster is no longer in the game. Myself and DSK, we literally stalked AW every single day about Cover 2 Buster. We were like, dude, it ain't right. And this year, that coverage isn't even in the game. So I guess in a roundabout way, that was a bit of a victory for us. I mean, go me, I suppose. But yeah, that's the thing. Coverages have rules. Whether it's a two-man under, man one, man zero, whether you're playing a spot drop coverage, a match coverage, a combo coverage. The success of the coverage scheme is dependent on the player's discipline and his trust in his teammates around him. Guys just don't freelance and ad-lib out there. And they communicate their checks based off of formation, motion, and then their play rec skill, natural talent, and instincts take over. And if they don't work, you have people thinking they should be completing bench into cover 3. When if you try to base your passing attack off of bench versus 3D, the defense would be laughing at you. You'd have your out routes being run right into curl flat linebackers or strong safeties, and your corners being run right into the teeth of leveraged DBs. And that's just one area. I mean, the running game, you have a lot of nice zone runs that were added to the game, but you have tandem blocks being released not only too soon, but you'll have the wrong lineman releasing, and he's then not able to get into position to target the linebacker he's designed to target, and your play gets blown up from the backside, and you're wondering why. But even if that happens, all is not lost for you and your ball carrier, because the chances are pretty decent that the tackler will slide off of you. The tackling is really loose. And I think that's combined with the fact that the ball carrier moves are a little bit too loose as well. Sure, they're nice and fluid to perform and look nice, but there's too much cheap and easy yardage when the play should just be over. Like, how many times have you had playing this game where your defenders tandem tackle a runner and the play drags on for 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 more yards? Like this, really. I mean, that's a 300-pound man and a linebacker. And he rolled them for almost 5 yards. Does that happen? Yes, it just happens too much. I mean, that's Isaiah Crowell. He's a solid player, but he's not going to be mistaken for a prime Jerome Bettis anytime soon. When it comes to things like pass rush, what I've learned about a percentage of people that play this game is that they do not like defensive linemen making plays against them. And I know the answer to that, and so do you. When you see a lot of guys play, what are they trying to do? They're trying to release as many guys downfield as humanly possible. And when their quarterback's getting knocked on their ass, they don't like it. And this is one major area that I really hope Rex Clinton and company, put their foot down and don't budge on. If your lineman can't block Khalil Mack, get a better lineman or leave some more blockers in. And if you don't want to do either of those things, too bad. And I actually find that it plays out better with regular teams versus MUT. In regular teams, the ratings disparity is much wider. I think the game in general, a couple of tournament guys have said that they feel like the game plays better on regular teams as opposed to MUT, and I think I agree. And the reason why I think that is because, like I was getting to, the ratings disparity is wider. Most teams don't have 2 or 3 really good offensive linemen. And a lot of teams don't even have 1. But when you're in the Ultimate Team world, you can theoretically have studs all over the place. And then when you have, the chemistries juicing them up, it just creates a bit of a distorted view of reality as far as what goes on a football field. Now, if you're mainly a franchise mode guy, I don't know what to tell you. You can't do anything until the statue QB bug is fixed. Obviously there's something going on that's causing them all to not play to their pocket presence and scrambling traits to their fullest ability. Until that gets resolved, if you're a CFM guy, I don't really see what, if anything, you can do as far as being able to play. At least for me, who plays, other users in an online CFM, that's not an issue, but, not everybody does. And if you are that somebody that, doesn't play in the online world, you're probably feeling a little bit left out in the cold. Now, getting back to MUT for a minute, MUT right now is a circus, more so than it usually is for a couple of reasons. One, DC glitchers are all over the place, so no one wants to play. No one wants to risk their position on the ladders because they don't want to run into some degenerate disconnect glitching, and that's assuming you can afford to even put a team on the field. The cost of getting players that can significantly upgrade your team is outrageous right now for a couple of reasons. One, you have this glut of, low 80s overall elites and just a ton of non-auctionable items. The items that are available on the auction block are at a real premium, and they cost a fortune to get a guy who has, the 90 and above zone coverage that you need, or that, 90 and above pass blocking offensive lineman that you need to be able to block Reggie White so you're not running for your life every play. Stuff like that. And Weekend League is a complete arms race. You got guys shelling out $2,000-3,000 on their team because they're using Weekend League to qualify for a tournament. Or they're trying to grind a salary cap ladder, and they want those players. And the only way you can get those players is to pay and rip open a bunch of packs. And the return on your, investment doing that is just terrible. I mean, a guy like Skimbo, the reigning Madden champion, he took home, after taxes, maybe, 60, 70 grand or so. I believe he grossed for the year over, 100K. He can do that. He can drop, 2 or 3 grand on his MUT team. But Johnny Credit Card ripping packs to, scrounge his way up the leaderboard to maybe eke his way into qualifying, hoping to avoid DC glitchers along the way. To do that is just lunacy. I mean, I get it. Before Eric Problem Right was Eric Problem Right, he was a guy grinding as well. You got to start from somewhere. But the odds of being able to get to the point to make a living off of playing Madden for what you're spending, it ain't very high. But, everyone has a dream, so, hey, if you can plop down the dough, go for it, I guess. What I don't get are the people that do this. They shell out the money for these crazy Ultimate teams, and you play them, and they're just awful. I can't imagine, we're in late September. You had guys dropping $1,000 on the game within the first week of EA access. So let's assume that you dropped between, August 22nd and now, 2 to 3 grand, and you can't even get out of rookie 1 or 2, and you're just terrible. Why? What are you doing? Again, the elite of the elite Madden players, they can do that. Or if you have a sponsored Twitch or YouTube channel, you can do that. But if you're not, you're basically letting money on fire. When you factor in your pack odds, how many packs you got to open to complete a set to get a, elite legend or whatever, and then being good enough to actually compete with the big boys. So when you factor all of this, all of these bugs that factor into the areas of gameplay that I mentioned, and some that I didn't get to, and the state of Ultimate Team, this, in my opinion, is the most disappointing first 30 days of Madden that I can recall. Between what we heard at EA Play and what we have now, we're basically in a situation where we're likely not going to be playing the game that should have been released until early October. It's clear that the game released unfinished. It's obvious. There's just too many things going haywire that shouldn't be going haywire. Even auto flip that I thought worked really well last year, even that brings you out in some really weird alignments now. And I like auto flip. Yeah, I gotta remember to, know how to set up a defense from, both directions of the field. And remember that some players are going to flip sides of the field, just depending on, the formation strength and auto flip doing his thing. But I'm okay with that. I don't mind it. As Kaepernick just throws the ball right into the turf. My goodness, you see what I'm dealing with here. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say on this. For the last, I guess, minute and a half of the video, you can see how this game plays out, if I'm going to hang on or not. Love to hear your guys' thoughts, and I will talk to you all later. Peace.
It was close, though. It's a short one here, complete to his tight end. He's back to throw. A little dump off for Corral. And
spot. They've made it very, very hard for them to find open places to throw the football.
Back to throw. Coleman has it here right side.
Underway to gash the defense downfield.
They'll look to throw. And, oh, Oh, a crusher there as it's intercepted. Picked off by the rookie. Third down, here's Forte. And he's going to get to the 31, enough for the first down. And the ball game should end here on the kneel down by. Granted, no matter who you're playing, no matter where you're playing.
You take it and you run with it. And you know you primed the pump all week in your own home facility. No one thinks we can do this. Only people who believe are right here in this room. And then you go on the road, band together, and get it done.
So for the Jets, they move back over 500 at 3-2 now on the year. And they'll return home next week to take on the New England Patriots. Meanwhile, for Cleveland, it was a good first month, but they'll fall to 4-1 as they suffer their first loss. And they'll look to regroup next week as they head to Houston to take on the Texans. So that'll just about do it for Charles Davis. I'm Brandon Gaudin. You've been watching the NFL on EA Sports. For more, log on to easports.com. With that, we say so long from Cleveland.